3. It's hard to believe that my memory could be so vivid at that age. I always thought I was around 4 when my mother took me to see Fantasia, and the experience that I describe in the book. That I don't think I'm going to be reading that section, but it's kind of an interesting turn on the spiral that as I'm exploring the roots of pop mythologies as religious experiences and religion as fake religion, and the contradictions in our American culture where the fake reveals the authentic invisible cultural transformation and the authentic disguises the actual nature of the times we are in, which is the paradox I play around with through the book, which is, I guess, a kind of aletheia. But looking at that and seeing the turn of the spiral that I'm working on Fantasia right at this time when I read the New York Times today and it says the videotape is out, and if you rush only for 30 days you can get the videotape of Fantasia. I'm also thinking as a cultural historian of 20 years ago with At the Edge of History, and this in a way is kind of like a turn of the spiral. It's a sort of mind travelogue about pop American culture, and it's a very extroverted meditation. But even before it really came out, it already created a shitstorm in cyberspace, because friends were telling me that there was just furious rage from Stuart Brand and Howard Rheingold about this book because I'm not celebrating virtual reality. And I thought it's kind of interesting because Stuart and I we're friends, and we're both, fellows of the Lindisfarne Association. But there was a kind of little tempest in a teapot 20 years ago over At the Edge of History when Stuart and I were finalists for the National Book Award, and I went to Stuart, and I think one can make a good case that the Whole Earth catalog certainly was much more part of the architecture of pop culture than At the Edge of History. But some of the New York culture types who were literary critics resigned from the board of judges in protest that literary prizes could go to a telephone directory. So it was really like a showdown between New York and California. And I was in this funny position as a kid from California. I grew up in LA, I went to LA High, I graduated from Pomona College. Here I was explaining California to New York in their terms, literary essays, and they were getting interested in it, but that was creating a protest and protecting the literary essay from the infiltrations of California. So I thought I was on, Stuart's side. But then when this turn of the spiral came up, and I was taking another look at sort of a dark comedy of errors in the Sun Belt of Orlando and Atlanta and the Tucson biosphere, and a little bit of the north of the West Edmonton Mall, the largest shopping mall in the world, which all of this is part of my anthropology for this book. It was intriguing that in the debate that I only heard about from friends, because I'm not privy and privileged to this particular electronic bulletin board. My friend, the mathematician Ralph Abraham, said there are two cultures now. It's not C.P. Snow's two cultures, it's fax culture and modem culture. And I'm definitely fax culture because it protects the integrity of the text, and literary writers and literary agents tend to use fax, and scientists tend to use modem, partly because the university pays their phone bill. And as a, since I'm not a professor, I don't have Ethernet to pick up the bill, or whatever, BitNet I guess it's called. So part of this, the shitstorm that was going on in cyberspace, as Mary Catherine Bateson and Howard Rheingold and Stuart Brand and Francisco Varela in Paris, so this is like New Hampshire, Paris, California, are all arguing with one another. And somebody from Shell Oil, I guess in the Shell Learning Group, who had made the mistake of saying, hey, I never read literary essays, but I've been reading this book, and it's literary essays, but it's kind of interesting. And then all of a sudden, California rises up in revolt and said, and Howard Rheingold was quoted on the thing saying, the literary essay is not the right form in which to discuss new technologies. So I thought, now that's, as a cultural historian, that's fascinating to me, because here 20 years ago, we were allowed to be sort of neck and neck for a literary prize, but now 20 years later, you're not even allowed to dare to permit yourself to think about the implications of the new technologies. And only memoese and American slang and sort of kind of apologetics that you see in Stuart's book on Inventing the Future at MIT, where he said, if you're not part of the steamroller, you're part of the road. Great line. Memorable prose. And the whole book is indeed a celebration of MIT with just like phallic fascination. Oh, you're so big, you fascinate me, you're wonderful. and not allowed to think about the shadow side of the medical side of to invoke Elul or Illich or Heidegger or anybody, just celebration of modernism and all its great rewards and joys. And every technology has to be, of course, revolutionary. You know, you can't have a new technology without it being revolutionary. So it was kind of fascinating to me to see how we play this kind of bi-coastal ping pong, that I was an MIT professor writing about California, and then Stuart Brand, you know, Silicon Valley, goes and writes about MIT, and we go back and forth. And yet the more we engage the culture, the more we enter into this catastrophe bifurcation where our sensibilities split. I wish Stuart were here tonight. So even in the very process of doing it, it sort of engages itself in the culture and generates anger, rage. And you always know something's good and something's real when people are getting angry. It's connected to guts and life and nerves and blood and everything else. So part of it is, I think, how I say it is as important as what I say. And part of this is an attempt to protect the integrity of the literary essay. All of the chapters of the book are named after the functions of the video recorder. So it's fast forward with a jeu de mots of both meanings of the word fast forward, play and record and erase. And it's an attempt on the part of the writer to return the favor. Electronics surrounded us and made us an artifact in their post-whatever culture. And I'm trying to return the favor, and yet the very effort to say the literary imagination is adequate and appropriate to discuss the implications of technology, there's a sense that this is a threat, and that this is not the appropriate way. And the dictum coming out of Howard Rheingold, who's now the editor of the Whole Earth Review, is to say literature just has to disappear from the face of the earth, that only memoese is the appropriate language for the imagination now. And I think that's really quite intriguing, and I'm Irish enough to say, fuck you, buddy. I'm not about to do it, but I wish to mythologize the fight and not to have it disappear in cyberspace, because I think it's so important and so interesting. And to argue in favor of Howard Rheingold's book on virtual reality, he went, ironically, to a lot of effort to be a cultural historian and to really research the roots of entertainment and Silicon Valley and all the origins of virtual reality and how it came to be. That said, I think what I'll do, what I want to say also with this, in terms of the turn of the spiral, is, as I was coming up here, people saying, well, with nonfiction writers, it's it's a little different from fiction writers, and I was thinking, well, fiction, nonfiction, this doesn't work anymore, and part of my whole career has been to try to create a kind of new genre of Wissenskunst, where the actual art of nonfiction, which is not alone to me, people, Norman Mailer, Lewis Thomas, Castaneda, others have used this. But in this particular book, I'm also trying to blur the distinction between fiction and nonfiction, because it is a travelogue on the real, but the last conclusion of the book is actually a short story. So it's a short story that doesn't occur in real time. It all occurs in video monitors. So in that sense, I'm moving into agreeing with Stuart Brand and Howard Rheingold and going from reality to cyberspace. I thought what I'd do tonight is just, I was going to read the fast forward, but I think that's so snarky and so swifty, and then you might think I'm very anti-American, and then I'd have to, fight patriotism and, hey, you're just a Europhile putting down America, and that's not what I'm doing in the book. I thought I would go, since this is the 50th anniversary of the Disney stuff, I read a little section of the Disney chapter. It's hard because it's a long chapter. It's like 55 pages on the cultural implications of Disneyism, and I'm only going to read about 10 or 13. And that should take about 20, 25 minutes. And then the rest is open for questions or refutations or heresy trials or anything you want to do with me. Is that okay?
Great.
Okay, this is from the chapter called Play. Well, let me read you the title so you can get the structure of the book.